Thanks, Ron. Terry Ascott was with me about a year and a half ago or so, talking about his ministry in the Middle East, mentioning SAT-7, a very exciting television outreach into so many of those countries. And he's back for an annual general meeting for his people tonight in the Toronto area. But we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening over there and get an update. Welcome back, first of all, Terry.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you here. A man from England, a former bridge builder who's now living in Cyprus, having lived in Egypt for 14 years, kicked out of Egypt. Why?
Human rights issues.
Human rights issues.
Basically, providing information to the US Senate and to Amnesty over prisoners of conscience in Egypt.
Oh, really? And they didn't like that?
No, it was politically embarrassing, shall we say.
Politically embarrassing.
Yeah.
Now, you have so much to talk about, and we've got some video support as well. In fact, why don't we right now just go to a little clip that gives us an overview of what we call SAT-7, and then we'll get some talk back from you on that. Let's take a look at this, friends.
The countries of the Middle East and North Africa, stretching from Casablanca to Kabul, are more close to the cause of Christ than any in the world. Or so many would say. Yet communities of Christians exist in every nation. These churches now have access to several keys which are helping them to survive and also to effectively witness to Christ in the 21st century. One important key is satellite television. And when combined with a second, the unique SAT-7 broadcast philosophy, these two keys become extremely effective in opening doors. Satellite TV enables broadcasters to reach over physical and societal restrictions and go directly into homes, even in the most remote locations, and to millions of people who cannot read. SAT-7 is a network of 4 channels: SAT-7 Arabic, SAT-7 Pars, SAT-7 Kids, and SAT-7 Turk, all broadcasting in local languages.
Terry, how did SAT-7 come to be?
Oh, it's a long story, but essentially it was a sort of no-brainer of an opportunity to take a medium that had become the primary source of information and entertainment for millions, and it was now possible for Christians to use it without censorship, to bypass censorship and come into thousands and millions of homes across the region from a satellite. And the birth of satellite television sort of was around the 1992 mark, and we launched in 1995. But it was a struggle because Christians were afraid to go in front of the television. They didn't know what the reaction would be from governments and so on, and there wasn't any facilities, experienced staff, programs on the shelf. So it was really starting from zero in the Arab context. But we thank God for the great team that has come together over the last 16 years to enable us to do several different channels.
Now, with SAT-7, do you buy time on an established satellite network, or do you have your own satellite network?
No, we buy channels, on different satellite systems, so we can cover the entire region from 2 directions, so that people with fixed dishes at different homes can pick up their signal from different satellites.
And how many hours a day do you broadcast?
It's about 800 hours a week of programming on 4 full-time 24/7 channels. The most wonderful channel we've got is our children's channel, and we run that round the clock because we cover 6 time zones across the region. And it's got the highest viewership of any Christian channels at all. We've got about 9 million regular viewers for this children's channel.
And is that all in Arabic?
It's all in Arabic. And of course we do dub some programs like cartoons for kids, but most of the programming is originally made in Arabic by Arab Christians in different countries across the region.
Now, speaking about the region, you have a lot of experience in Egypt. There was a report today that the former vice president under Mubarak has been allowed to enter the fray, you know, in terms of the presidential race, which happens, what, about a month from now?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
4 weeks.
And he had been barred by the Islamists, but now a committee that oversees these candidates have given him the green light. You were with SAT-7 in Tahrir Square when everything was happening there a year ago or so. What's your assessment of Egypt right now? Is it better off or worse off?
Depends who you talk to.
Yeah.
If you ask an Islamist or a Muslim fundamentalist, they say we're much better off because now 70% of the parliament are members either of the extreme Salafist party or the Muslim Brotherhood. If you ask Christians, I am afraid to say that they're feeling very insecure. They're not sure how the Constitutional Committee is going to work out. Is the new Constitution going to be almost exclusively based on Islamic law? And what place does that leave in society for the church or other minorities in the country, and for the rights of women and so on? And they've just lost the head of their church a few weeks ago. Yeah. He died after 40 years as their patriarch. Most Christians in Egypt have only known this pope. So they'll be electing a new pope soon. They've got a presidential election you just mentioned coming up. So there's a great feeling of insecurity about the future. Some people have responded in a positive way. They've gone on the offensive to witness in the public square, if you like, and others have just retreated or talking now about immigration.
Now, Egypt must be conflicted somewhat because they are an ally of the United States of America. They are heavily subsidized by the U.S. They're at peace with Israel, or at least they have been at peace with Israel. Are they prepared to take the risk of disassociating themselves from these alliances and these peace treaties and going rogue, as it were?
I'm afraid yes is the answer. I mean, most of the support that's coming from the US is for or through the military, and the military have a vested interest in that relationship continuing. But as far as the majority in Parliament are concerned, they don't want this dependency or open, overt relationship with America, and would be quite happy to substitute those annual subsidies with gifts from Saudi Arabia.
Now, you mentioned the Copts being insecure, and they certainly have been under a lot of pressure and a lot of persecution. What about the Christians in Syria? They also are conflicted, are they not?
They are. They're caught between a rock and a hard place. I mean, they were a protected minority in Syria by the Assad regime, and they themselves are a 10% minority, the Alawites. And the Christians are about 10%. And the fear is that if there was a sort of violent change in the leadership of the country and Islamic groups came into power, which is a very possible scenario, the Christians would in fact be displaced. There have been chants in the mosque, you know, the Alawites to the gallows, that's the Assad clan, and the Christians to Beirut. In other words, go to a Christian country, a neighboring country. So they are feeling the pinch. Cities like Homs have been pretty much totally evacuated of their Christian populations. So these people have been internally displaced or have crossed the border into Turkey for the time being.
The fact is, though, that the Christian communities in these Arab Spring countries, or emerging Arab Spring countries, are still thriving, aren't they? Like, for instance, in Tahrir Square, you had an event. In fact, why don't we take a look at this, friends? You'll be amazed at what you're about to see. Now, first of all, I mistook this for the other event at Tahrir Square. This was not Tahrir Square. Where was this?
This was on 11/11/11, the 11th of November, when there was a 12-hour night of repentance and prayer for Egypt. And this was held in an open-air Orthodox church. Many Protestants and Catholics came as well. Up to 60,000 people took part in this amazing event. And what you saw there was just a clip out of a 12-minute moment in the program when the crowd took over the program, started to chant Jesus, Yeshua, and just kept on. And it was just a very moving experience. And we were broadcasting this, and we had other television channels coming to us begging for the feed. Al Jazeera took it. 2 Egyptian secular channels carried a couple of hours of this live broadcast. And it became really a public forum for witness and testimony, and is talked about to this day. And then, as you mentioned, another amazing event on the 31st of December, when there was a worship service being held in a church just 200 meters from Tahrir Square, Casa de Barra Evangelical Church. And after 2 hours, the service moved out into the streets, and a procession of several thousand with candles moved into Tahrir Square, where they were joined by 15,000 other people for a time of worship and witness in that iconic square. And it was just an amazing opportunity to share the gospel openly like that.
Well, you know, Jesus said, I'll build my church, the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Exactly. I mean, he's in charge. Now, very quickly, your son incurred a pretty serious injury during that uprising in Tahrir Square. Tell us about that, and we'll show some pictures while you're talking about it.
Yes, he was actually in the square on the 3rd day of the revolution in January last year, handing out water bottles to demonstrators. He just felt he wanted to make a contribution. Then suddenly the crowd moved back when the army, or the police actually, started to use live ammunition. And he got a bullet in the eye, it ricocheted off the concrete. He was unconscious, carried to an emergency first aid post. They patched him up. Somehow he got back to his car and drove home with one eye and no glasses.
I mean, look at that shot. I mean, it looked like it entered right underneath his eye there.
It did. It actually went in the crease. If you'll see other shots, you would not know that he'd been shot in the eye. He could have lost the eye so easily. But he had surgery in the UK. He couldn't find any doctors in the hospitals in Egypt, and eventually just took a flight after walking around for 5 days with a patch over his eyes. He got to the UK.
I understand National Geographic wants to do a little story on this.
A month ago, I had a call from him in Tahrir Square, where National Geographic film team had taken him down to tell his story, and then, of course, about the surgery, which was, I think, the focus of this National Geographic article.
Now, we got just 30 seconds or so left. Your ministry is all about the gospel. It's all about Jesus. I mean, one way or another, that's the bottom line, right?
It's 2 things. To make the gospel available to everyone. It is a human right, we believe, that everybody should have the opportunity to hear the gospel once, at least, in their own language, and make an informed choice about how they respond to Jesus Christ. And the second area is to encourage, support, and bring hope to the church in this very hopeless environment that's post-Arab Spring.
You have a website?
www.sat, and then the number 7.org.
SAT-7.org. That's easy to remember, SAT-7.org. I'm sure a lot of you want to check that out and learn more about Terry Ascott and this remarkable ministry. Thanks for coming our way, Terry.
Thank you.
All the best to you. We'll be back with more right after this.